and welcome to the Scary Goals Club. I am your host, Hazel Robertson, and I believe that to make the impact that you know you are called to make in the world, it requires setting bigger, scarier goals and then becoming the person who creates them. That is what I am here to show you how to do. That's what we're diving into with mindset, tools, tricks, really simple, practical, actionable steps you can take and start applying straight away. Because whatever you believe, we have this one life that we definitely know about. Start making the impact you know you want to make in the world. Fear is not a reason to stop. We keep going. We work through the fear. That is what we do in the Scary Goals Club. So come on in, come join, hit subscribe, and let's get started. Hi, and welcome to episode 11 of the Scary Goals Club podcast. I am your host, Hazel Robertson, and this is the episode after the last episode, episode 10, where I spoke about my recent ADHD diagnosis, and even I've been reflecting. And well, first of all, just thank you all so much, like for everyone who listened to that episode and for reaching out and all your like just really kind comments and your thoughts about it and offers of help and offers of chats. Like, yeah, I just feel I'm trying to like put it into words, almost like just very seen and validated and almost like it's safe to be me. Like it feels like it's okay to be me and like a work in progress. I've been figuring all this stuff out. And yeah, just thank you so much just for all of your kindness and your offers of help as well. So yeah, I I'm such a what I call like a vulnerability hangover. Like after sharing that, well, it was one thing recording it and then editing it, and then it was like, okay, scheduling it in. It was like going out. It's like, oh my goodness, wow, okay. And then it was out in the world. And then actually there were some really lovely comments back. So thank you so much for all of that. And even this episode, I think feels almost in some ways a little bit scarier. And I'm not really sure why. It's like, oh wait, like even this morning I had it on my calendar. It's now 11, 5 past 11. I had it on my calendar at 10 to record this episode. I've literally put it off for like an hour. So because it's like, oh wait, I have to do it again. I have to show up again. I'm like, I have to keep going. I can't just like put this episode with this diagnosis out of the world and then just like go and hide and not show up again. It's like, oh no, wait, I'm doing these 30 episodes. This is episode 11. It's time to show up and time to do it all again. So yeah, I was feeling in a little bit like that place this morning. Even one thing it's so interesting. So I'd recorded the episode and then I didn't even want to put in the title or the show notes ADHD. So obviously for me, there's like different ways of becoming okay with being like, I guess, public with this information. I mean, it's not that I know that many people, but still putting it out where anyone could like access it and listen to it. So there's one thing like telling close friends and family. And even then, there's not many people that actually know that I've actually told. And then it's recording it on a podcast, which feels like if someone's actually going to take the time to listen to me chat away, like that feels quite safe. Like they're probably really kind people and they've got my own back. And I've got my own back as well. There's still the fear, of course, of what others think, but there's also like, well, people are people and I have my own back as well. They can think whatever they want. So anyways, there was the like recording it and then actually writing somewhere in the podcast or in the show notes or like in an email or in a social media post, like writing ADHD. Like I haven't got that far yet. It's just like my diagnosis. It's like, if you really want to know what it is, you have to listen to the episode. So at some point, there's obviously different layers of like, yeah, becoming more public with this information. And the next one that feels quite scary is like actually writing it down, like having it in text form where it's like you could see it or you could read it. I don't know why that feels more scary, but it does. So maybe that's my next thing to lean into is not just speaking about it, but actually having it written somewhere. So we'll see how we go. But oh, yeah, I could tell that I was putting off the episode this morning, like recording it, because I had made like a thermos of tea. Big thermos of tea. I've got my mug, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a really nice like, coffee. And I haven't had just like a decaf coffee. I don't have caffeine, but I haven't had that for ages. And I even got down, like, got this milk foamer and like put the milk in and like made the coffee in the like machine that again haven't made it for like months. And like had my nice coffee and I've now drunk it as well. Cause I was like, oh, I'll sit down and I'll like have my coffee and then I'll like record the podcast. And it's like chug the coffee, still didn't want to record the podcast. But what's really interesting is so today's episode, I'm going to talk all about shifting, well, identity and also shifting your identity and why you might want to do that, and also deciding your own identity and how that's going to help you create your scary goals and move towards like who it is you want to become and actually deciding that consciously. And I used a lot of this morning, which was my future self who's like on her 30th podcast. She's not putting it off for an hour and 5 minutes. She's just doing it. She's showing up, whatever it is, she's doing it and putting it out into the world. And so I was able to tap into that. And then, okay, an hour later, but here I am. I'm here showing up doing the podcast. So what I want to talk about today is what identity is. So, our identity is essentially like how we think about ourselves. It is our thoughts that we have about ourselves. And when we're little, when we are, a kid, like my son, like he maybe is starting to get a bit of a sense of who he is, but a lot of the thoughts that we have about ourselves, we have adopted from maybe what others think about us or events that have happened, and we attach meaning to them and we can turn that into an identity. And then we can carry that through our life. And how we think about ourselves, the identity that we have about ourselves, drives how we feel about ourselves and what we're doing. And it drives our behaviors and our actions and what we are doing, what we are not doing. And then ultimately, like the direction that our life can be taking. So identity is really important because often we just assume that we are a certain way and we never actually question it. And I'll give you a really specific example. So again, an ADHD thing is like my whole life I have struggled with time management and getting out the door in a certain time. I was always the last one out the door, like as a kid, or I would have forgotten something and have to go back for it, or be rushing last minute, and getting things organized, getting out at a certain time, I found really, really hard. And I just thought that's always what I was. Even I remember at uni, I would pack in, like some days I'd have like multiple, I'd say yes to like three different parties or seeing three different like groups of people like on the same day. They would all overlap. Like, yeah, I can totally just do them all and not actually logically think it's not possible to. And I would just rush around from different things. I'd like be fleeting conversations here and rushing off. And I remember a friend said later, like, oh, I thought you just loved being busy. And it wasn't until years later that I was like, I actually don't like being busy, because with that busy, rushing, last minuteness came a lot of stress and anxiety. Like when I've left something until the last minute and then there's a deadline, and then I suddenly realize, oh, wait, there's way more to do than I actually have capacity for, or oh, I forgot this thing, or to ask someone for something. I'm thinking with uni deadlines, even with some of my consulting work, although I was a little bit more organized. When you have a team or other people depending on you, it's like managed to kind of step it up a little bit. But my default used to be just rushing around, leaving things to the last minute, being like, oh, it'll be fine. And then in this mad panic and this mad stress to figure things out and like get things done. And they would always get done. I would always figure it out. It would always be okay. And almost that was this like proving that, oh, well, it's fine. I can leave things the last minute. 'Cause it's like, well, it always kind of works out. It wasn't until I realized I had this almost like background level of stress and anxiety that came with that. And I was like, I am just done with that. I actually got burned out in 2019, diagnosed with burnout and anxiety and depression, which actually now looking back, often those are symptoms of undiagnosed and untreated ADHD. So it's almost like ADHD was the root cause, as it were. And then the anxiety, the depression, the burnout was the symptom of not managing that ADHD and just trying to do everything and finding it really hard and getting completely overwhelmed at like trying to almost like keep up and feeling like my feet were just going under the water and I was like barely staying afloat. And then adding on top of it, like being really like having a lot of like self-judgment and like, why do you find this so hard? Why are you always last minute? Like all of that kind of story on top was just exhausting. So it was around then I was like, I'm done with this busyness stuff. I do not want to do this anymore. Like it's exhausting, it's stressful. I'm done with everything being just in time or last minute and rushing or like losing everything. Just being like, where is that thing? And piles of stuff. I was like, I'm done. And so I had made that decision then, and I hadn't fully realized that it was like a decision about an identity, but I was deciding to be someone who was done with being busy. Once I realized, actually, this is a choice that I have, I remember just being like, I am so done with this. This is not who I want to be anymore. This is not how I want to be in the world. And intentionally from then, it was like I started thinking, okay, I am not someone who's busy. I am someone who is calm. I am someone who is organized. I am someone who leaves plenty of time, who has lots of space. And when I started shifting and thinking about that identity, I started making decisions like I was already that person. So I'd be like, okay, what would someone who has plenty of time, who has energy to do things, spaciousness, who isn't busy, what would they be doing? How would they be thinking? It's like, well, they wouldn't be saying yes to all these things. They'd be checking, do they actually have capacity to take on this thing? And then saying no if not. And I started saying no a lot more. Someone who, so also thinking, okay, someone who has plenty of space, who is organized, they will plan. Like they're going to break down and think ahead. Like, okay, what are all the things that I want to get done? Putting them in an order, prioritizing, letting things go, giving people as much notice that I needed something from them so that they could plan that in as well, giving them reminders, making sure everything was like coming together, like having lots of check-ins, writing everything down, like all the notes from the meetings. I know you can do it with AI now and it'll give a transcript, but I used to write down literally everything, like all the actions, all the decisions, everything, just so I knew it was in one place and I could go back to it. It wasn't relying on like notes in notebooks, notes somewhere else. It was like there was one place, it always was, like the team could see it, everything was there, everyone knew like what was happening. All of those things helped me create more space, be less busy, be more effective actually with the time that I was spending at uni and after. Even if I was traveling anywhere, like getting a train somewhere, I'd be like, oh, I'll be fine. Literally leaving it to the last minute. It was like, why would I want to get there earlier and then hang about? Whereas now I'm like, why would I want to get there just on time and be rushing? If I get there early, I can always read a book or I can have a nice coffee or do something else. So I've completely shifted the way that I've thought about where do I want my extra time to be? I would much rather have it at the place I'm wanting to get to that has a deadline and be able to relax there than having that time in the house, I don't know, on my phone or tidying something and then having this mad rush and not sure if I was actually going to make the train or not. So I've just shifted the way that I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking more about someone who has plenty of time and is focused and effective. And even I was building in like time within my day that I would be focused. I would like turn off my email notifications. It's like I was behaving like someone who wasn't busy, who was someone who was focused, someone who was calm, who was present, who was really grounded. It completely shifted everything. And I just lost that identity of someone that was always late, always last minute, always rushing. And now, if I am rushing at all, it feels really weird. And I'm like, whoa, I need to pause, slow my brain down, and then go back to it. And the other place that this was really interesting that we did was during my coach certification. Even before that very first call, we were advised to show up to the calls as if we were already a certified coach, already with paying clients. So we weren't just like coming to the calls, and mine were in the evening because I did the training with a US training program. And you don't show up to the call on your phone or like in your pajamas or drive it or doing something else. It's like, no, you show up to the call with good lighting, good sound, good internet quality, like you have prepared for the call as if you have a paying client that is there in front of you. Like you are present, you are fully engaged, you are already being a coach, even though at that point, like we hadn't even been told the first thing about coaching, right? Even before that, we were like all stepping into that identity. And I remember really owning that and going out and getting like good lighting, making sure my background was nice and calm. And I didn't have like random stuff in the background, making sure I was in a separate room. It was really quiet. I invested in a really good microphone, like stepping into being that person. So then, by the time I actually was certified as a coach, it wasn't like, oh, now I have to suddenly change my identity overnight, which doesn't really happen. It's a gradual thing of becoming it. Once I actually was a coach, it's like, oh, well, I already feel like that because I've been practicing being that for the last 6 months. It wasn't anything different. I'd already been changing my identity about myself, changing how I viewed myself changing how I felt about myself, and therefore changing my behavior, showing up in a different way. We're like giving our brain more evidence that we are already that coach. It's like we are deciding who we want to be, and then we keep proving that to ourselves. So oftentimes when we do this work, it's like, and I know this with like coaching all my clients, that's like, okay, when I reach this goal, or when I have this many clients, or when I have this thing done, then I will feel confident. Then I will feel good about myself. Then I will know that I'm good enough. Then I will be a good enough business leader. Whatever the thing is, it's like we think about what that is for you. Oftentimes we think, okay, I'll change how I think about myself when this one thing happens that we're working towards. Okay. So I'll give you the podcast example. It could be, okay, I'll think of myself as a podcaster when I've recorded 30 episodes. Then I'll be a real podcaster. It's like, no, it's the other way around, because nothing will magically change then at 30 episodes. It doesn't work that way. It's changing it as we go. So it's like, okay, I right now am going to be showing up as someone who has released 30 podcast episodes. Like I'm already that person. And then I continue to show up. And then by the time I get to 30 episodes, it's like, okay, this is just who I am, because I've been coming and being this person all the way along. All the way along. And so think about this for your goal. So bring to mind the goal that you want to create, your scary goal that you're working towards. And imagine, like, take yourself into the future where the goal is already done. Like you've already created it, already happened, and connect with that version of yourself. Like imagine there's you in the future, like the goal is already done. How are they different than you are now? Like, what are some of the things that they are doing that's different? Like, how are they showing up differently? How are they behaving differently? How are they acting differently? Are there things they are doing? Are there things they are not doing? Really thinking about that. And then how are they thinking and feeling that's different than you are now? How are they talking to themselves? How do they think about themselves? What do they believe about themselves? And just knowing that you get to start believing that now. It's like we think, okay, I get to believe. So, for example, for me with the podcast, okay, when I've done 30 episodes, then I'll believe I'm a podcaster. Like, no, I believed from like even before the very first episode, I am a podcaster. Like, I believed that, like in my bones. I was like, this is me. This is what I do. Even before I'd recorded a podcast, even on that first episode that now I'm sure I'll look back and be like, wow, that was my first episode. And it would be easy to be like, oh, I'm just a baby podcaster. I'm a beginner podcaster. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, no, that wasn't my identity. It's like, I am a podcaster. I'm a podcaster at one episode. I'm a podcaster at 30 episodes. And I've stepped into that identity and I am becoming it. And even it's been really fun. Like was uploading some of the videos to YouTube the other day, and I'm going to put them on Spotify because you can upload videos to Spotify as well. And even looking back at like just the video quality, I don't think I'd got the zoom quite right on the camera, like for the very first episode, and the lighting was like a bit dark and a bit off in the back. Anyway, all of these things, and just looking at even this is episode 11, like even the evolution of the video quality, or maybe how relaxed I am about talking about whatever, not feeling I have to like be a certain way. I can just get on and chat. Like already that has shifted. Yes, of course, I'm becoming more of my 30 podcast episode self. But I still believe from the very beginning I was a podcaster. So thinking about you and thinking about this statement is like, I am what? Like when we tell ourselves I am something, that is the identity that we have. So thinking about for you, like, what is that? What is that identity you want to create for yourself? And then start stepping into that and becoming that on your way to your goal. Okay. So that's how you create the goal. You don't get to believe that when the goal is already done. You have it. You change your identity. You shift how you think about yourself. You shift how you're showing up. And that is what creates the goal. Okay. I hope that was helpful. Any questions on any of this, just please fire them over. I love hearing from you guys. And again, thank you so much for, listening to me and reaching out and chatting to me about your own scary goals, your own thoughts, your own neurodiversity. Like, it's just so amazing to, that was like one of the things that I just loved. The idea when I started this podcast is it wasn't just for me to be like shouting into the void of standing up here, just having like, it feels for me more like a conversation, which is exactly what I wanted, because I am just in my spare room with a camera and a microphone and a light. But actually having that in back and forth in that dialogue and hearing your thoughts and all of that, like having these conversations, like that is what I wanted this to be. And so the more that I can make content that's like useful for you and hear what it is that you want me to focus on or any of that kind of stuff, it just really means so much. So any thoughts, any questions, anything like that, please reach out. Like, I love to chat to you guys. And yeah, if I can help in any way, please let me know. Okay, have an amazing rest of the day, and I'll catch you next week. Bye. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If this was helpful, please hit subscribe and leave a review. This helps get this work in the hands of more purposeful people. That is, more people creating bigger, scarier goals, making an even bigger impact in the world. And if you want to take this work deeper and work with me directly, head to the show notes and I've put all of the information there. If you've got any questions or if there's anything you're like, ooh, I'd love you to talk about that on the pod, please just get in touch. I love hearing from you guys. And I'll see you next time in the Scary Goals Club.